Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, we're going to go back and do a tutorial, this time on Firecracker, right after this. So I'm going to go back to the web page where we left off last time, and we're going to go through and do some setup and show you how to start Firecracker. Well, first, where to find Firecracker, how to download it, and then second, how to set it up and how to execute it. Execute your newly formed virtual machine with your container in it. So there's a Docker Hub page for this, and there's a link right on their site to get there. They start you out with, the typical README. I'm going to go down here to contrib, and you'll find a file called Getting Started Guide. And then there's some steps here that we have to complete in order to get the initial setup. So first thing I'm going to need to do is to add my user to the device KBM file. So if you're running Ubuntu, you'll need to install the set and get fackle commands. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember what those commands are, but if you put in get fackle and set fackle on any modern Ubuntu, it should try to find the package that you're missing and tell you. So if I look at on my system, I already have it set up, and you can see the plus sign here, but I'll go ahead and I'll enter the command here for you. And I probably should expand this window just a touch. Huh? And so let's explain it. So we're going to sudo, and then this is the command set file ACL -m. So that's a modify. And this is for the user, and then the name of the user, and then the permissions you're granting. So in this case, I'm just picking up my username from my environment variable. I'm going to set read-write to dev/kbm, which is the name of the file. So I can do that as many times as I want. It is not going to hurt. And then I can turn around and validate that it did it correctly by doing a get fackle. And my username is showing up right here. Now, if you'll notice that the group owner is KBM. So I could just add my user to the KBM group and do this. But then I'd have to log off and back on. Why mess with that? Just go in. That's what fackles or ACL is for. So why bother with that? So yeah, we're just keeping things simple today. The next thing we're going to need is, now I've been having trouble with this today. I don't know why I'm having trouble with it, but the next thing I'm going to need is this line right here. So I need the binary for Firecracker. Now there are instructions that are on the website proper that you can get Jailer. Jailer is the other half of this. This is going to download the Firecracker binary. Jailer is the other half of it, and Jailer is used in production. So that's a wrapper around Firecracker. So we don't need it for today because we're just testing. We're just playing around, right? I don't need to protect my machine. I don't care about it. So I'm going to go in here to new. I've already got this, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that. And I don't know if they have a dead server or what. Yeah. See, if it comes back with 9 characters, somebody is missing it. One of the servers is missing. I'm just going to keep doing this until I find one that will let me have it. Yeah. Nope. All right, fine. Yeah, like I said, I've been having problems with that command today. Let's see if I can get it to work from the EC2. Oops. There we go. So I guess you have to do both commands in order for this to work. So this time we actually got the binary successfully, and we know that because it has a version number. But I am going to get rid of this other one. So I guess you need both. I guess you need both commands to make this work. So I guess my problem was my own. Typical. So I'm going to move this to just Firecracker. That's all I need. and then we'll change the execute. We'll make it executable, and then you'll want to move this into the same directory with the shell scripts. So that's all you need there. And to start it, now the first time you start it, you won't have to worry about this, but I will need to run. Here, you can get the, oops. So it'll show you here what the command structure is, and you can start time, no API socket. So that command right there is the only thing I need to start this up. That option. And then for my scripts, I just need firecracker.sock that I want to create in temp. You know, a lot of times people put sock files out in the var directories, and that's fine too. No news is good news. Don't know if I have this actually configured correctly, but we'll give it a try. I need another window now because my first command window is now blocked. So, okay. So the next thing I'll need to do here is I'll need to have a couple of files. I need to have just like you do with a VM, I need to have an image to boot, right? So that's what this does. And there's already two pre-built ones that are out here on this image bucket. So you'll need the kernel image, and then you'll need the root image to where to boot from. So I have to define both. So I need my kernel, and then I need the actual file system. So and that should download those again, and it did. So I now have my hellofs.ext and hellovm.bin. That's all I need to get started, except now I need to configure Firecracker. So I've kind of broken this up into steps for you. So you'll notice that it's going to make a request of Firecracker on the socket, which is Firecracker. So it's talking to the socket, and this right here is the URL. You'll notice that it has boot source in it. What the heck is? Why did it do that? So let's just back up to the home page here. Oops, went too far. So here under source is where I want to go. And the very first thing is the API server. That's probably a little hard to read, isn't it? So Firecracker source API server. We're going to go into Swagger. And right here is a file called firecracker.yaml. That defines the API for communicating with Firecracker. So everything you need is in here. So if I kind of scroll down through here, you'll see some URL paths here. The first one is actions, boot source. Well, that's the one that we're working with, isn't it? Boot source, right there. So this is going to show you that the operation ID is boot guest source. We don't care about that, but this right here we do. Because a little further down in the file, there'll be the declarations. So you have to go pretty much toward the end. All these are URLs still, so I'm just bypassing all this. Config, see, if whatever you want to do, set up network interfaces, or you want to create something, a snapshot, you load it. Still going down through it, there's a lot of commands, definitions, boot source, top one. So right here, the only thing, there's a required parameter called, or a JSON name value pair, is the kernel image path. And there's some optional ones for boot arguments. There's an initd, and then there's the kernel image. So it's just a string that has the path name to the image. So all I got to do is tell it that. Which it did. This is the image path, hello VM, which is in my current directory here, right there. And then there's some boot arguments, which is I want a TTY so that I can obviously interact with the VM. Reboot is kill, panic was 1, PCI is off. So that's all I need for that. So, all right. Now, you shouldn't, hopefully, we won't see any messages over there. No news on the Firecracker side is good news, but I should get a 204 return result when I execute the command. And that's basically, yes, I get a 204. And that is good. That is successful. So I now have my kernel image defined. The next thing I'll need to do is to define the root FS. And you'll notice this time there's a different URL, and we could go back in here and go back all the way up to root FS. I think it's right. Snapshot, almost there. No, well, maybe they stuck it right under it. Yeah, don't put it in alphabetical order. Let's not make things easy for us, huh? Suggestion, put these in alphabetical order, guys. Because I'm lazy. Well, I don't see it. Let's do a find. Or not. Well, anyway, it's here. We'll do it from the command line. Sometimes I just happen to have the file right here. So what? Maybe not. Maybe I need... Let's look at it from that perspective. Yeah, drive ID. Okay, that's the URL again. And then we'll just keep on going down and down. Okay, so there's the declaration. So path on host, that's required. Drive ID, that's required. Is read only, I need to have a response in that. And root device, I need to have a response to that. And then I think there's only a partition ID that's left and a rate limiter. So remember we talked about the rate limiter being a factor here. That's where you would define it. So let's see. In my case, I'm assigning a drive ID to a text root FS. You can any string with or numeric characters is fine here. Similar to the last command, I'm specifying it to go to that file. It's a root device, yes. And is it read only? No. We want to read right to it. So make sure that I can see that, and we'll go ahead and run. And again, 204, that's fine. All successful. Next one is optional, whether you want to do this or not. This is setting up the logging, and I'm basically sending the FIFO queue to null, the metrics, I don't want to collect it. The only thing I want is the error messages. And this is similar, URL for logger, and then look up the declaratives for it. That's it. No news is good news again. So that should finish up the declaration. So we've defined the VM basically. And I mean, you can put all those files into one shell script. I was just trying to keep things broken up so you didn't get lost in the details. This looks complicated from the start, but it's not really. The next thing we want to do is we want to start the instance. We actually want to, push the start button on the VM, so it'd be similar to doing that, except we're doing it from the command line, and it starts to fire up. This is by the way, this is Apache Linux, Alpine Linux, I mean, and you'll notice that there's a couple of problems here that started up right away. Yeah, well, maybe not. They didn't complain that it didn't have a network this time. Usually it does. Did they add one? No. So there's no network. Normally it complains and says you don't have a network set up, and it just gets real upset about it. So It basically does the same thing as Docker does. So if you do a Docker command where you install, you actually say, I want a shell instance of it, it's going to dump you into it. So to prove it, you'll notice that I am definitely on an Amazon kernel here, and I am definitely running Alpine Linux 3.8.1. A bit older release. I think they're at 3.12 right now, so a little bit old. But you know, you can fix this. You can fix this. You can build this yourself. So let's look at top for a minute. So we have 1 meg of memory. Most of it is free. It's not using much. The CPU count is 1. So I only have 1 CPU running, and it's pretty idle. It's not doing much. But how much memory am I actually using? So 11 meg. So they're not lying when they say that this has a little bit more because SSH is running. But you know they weren't lying when they said it was 6 megabytes. Was it 6 or 8? Well, I forget. But anyway, it's not using enough. But what if my needs, this is fine for a small VM, but what if my needs are larger? What if I know my app's going to need 2 CPUs and probably I'm going to need, let's say, 200 and some meg of memory in order to execute it. So the first thing is there is a command to shut this down, but it's broken right now. I don't know when they'll have it fixed, but it is broken. The best thing I can suggest, this is kind of strange, but if I do a reboot on the instance, it'll actually shut it down. So this is how you would cleanly shut it down as a workaround for the problem, the bug they have with the command. The last time I tested it was yesterday. It did not work. So, but it doesn't clean up after itself. So I'll need to clean up after it. I need to get rid of my sock file, otherwise when it tries to run again, it will complain. So let's go ahead and bring it back up. And this time, we're gonna redefine it. Now, why did I shut this down? Well, I want to make sure that I have it cleaned out before I start reconfiguring the VM again, so I don't have anything left over from the previous one. I might, it's just my practice on how to do things. Yours may vary. But anyway, let's look at run. Where am I at? 5. Okay, so that's the kill command. You can use that, but just be aware that if you are trying to persist data, a kill -9 is not the best thing to send to a Linux kernel. So the recommended procedure is to do a reboot from within the VM. So let's see. But I guess if you can't get it to work any other way, shoot it with a shotgun, right? I mean, that's basically what that's going to do. Shoot the instance. Oops. Okay, so I don't want to do that. I want to do 7, I think. So in this case, I put all 3 files into one. So this is no different. It's going to define the VM. It's going to define the rootfs. It's going to define the logger. Oops. I must have broke it. Okay, we'll try it again. Yeah. So yeah, my executing the Firecracker command, not good, because that broke the socket because it overwrote it. So okay, so next thing I'm going to do run 8, and this time we're calling machine config. And if I look this up, if you followed their directions on the getting started, it didn't work, but I think they might have corrected that. But anyway, there is 3 things that are required. You have to tell it how many virtual CPUs you're going to assign, how much memory you're going to allocate to the virtual machine, and then the hyperthreading, whether you want to enable it or not. I'm going to disable it for this. So we'll set up that config. all's good. And the next thing is to start the instance. The password, by the way, is root for the VM that you're bringing down, so it's root. Let's see. Let's go into top, make sure that we have, so I have 200 and some plus meg. I should have 2 CPUs, and I do. So I have basically modified this VM. So I use the same images as before, and I mean, I'm ready to go here. It didn't take up any more space. Nope, 4.9 meg. It's still using just this is very lightweight. So, yeah, let's, I don't know what else I can say about that. I mean, you're ready to go with Alpine. Now, I'm going to leave this as a exercise for you, but let me show you where you can find documentation to take you a bit further. So let's go back out here. I need to come up one more level. Oh, now I get out to the outer level. So let me make this a bit bigger. And then right here in docs, so you'll notice that there are a lot of different things here. So this is the design. This is on the setup. This is how to create an image. So yeah, you need Docker, and then so you can create your own images to be used by Firecracker. If you want to change the kernel image, you actually have to compile that, and I think there's instructions here on how to do that. But there's the getting started page. Jailer. We didn't talk about Jailer very much. Kind of mentioned it in passing, but this is the command structure for Jailer, and of course you would use that on the production server in order to, defense in depth, right? I have my container that I'm going to run. I have the Firecracker VM around it, and then I have Jailer around it to jail the instance to protect my host environment from what's going on inside of Firecracker. So I've got Firecracker to protect the container, and I've got Jailer to protect my host. Then there's the logger information. Metrics is how to gather statistics and information about what your app is doing. Network performance numbers, if you want to add that to the if you want to do a test on things, you can. I don't have network up, so I can't run this to actually see what it does. But if you want to set up the network, that's the instructions to do it. You will need a tunnel on your host device, your host machine. And then you'll need to configure that tunnel and your firewall in order to allow port forwarding for the defined device that you're going to pass. And then the next thing you'll need to do is to actually set up. And this is setting up a fictitious MAC address. So, yep, that's all you need there. But like I said, I'm going to leave that one for you to do. VSOC, and then there's the rootfs. And it talks a little bit about the kernel images here, where you'll have to compile the kernel. You make the VM, and then you just take that, and then the next step is to create the empty file system for the for your root file system. And this is going to go to Docker. It's going to download Alpine. Now you can put Ubuntu in here, but just remember that if you're bringing down different containers, you'll need to find out how much memory they're taking in order to configure the VM properly, right? So, I mean, out there, the Alpine is skinny. It's very small, so it doesn't need a lot of resources for this. All right, so let's reboot this and shut it down. And it's down. And now I'll clean up So if I run this again next time, I won't have a socket in the way. So what did we do? The first thing we did was we set up KVM so that it would allow me to read and write to the device. Then I downloaded Firecracker. And then I started to prep and get the images from the buckets. I started setting up Firecracker with a number of commands to define the kernel image, define the boot image. Now I defined some logging, and then I defined, I just started it the first time around. The default is 1 and didn't have to really do too much to it. Second time around, shut it down, cleaned it out, started up in the middle accidentally. No, don't do that. So anyway, next is repeat the steps, right? Configure the Firecracker, and this time I added the step to assign an additional CPU. And then I showed you where you could find the documentation, and I showed you where you could find the API spec. That's always been a problem. I mean, when I first started looking at this, that was kind of a problem for me. You have to kind of go hunting around for some of this stuff, but you know, that's kind of typical in projects which are new. The documentation catches up later, but they do have quite a bit of documentation on here, and it's pretty good. So I can't really fault them for that. I guess the thing that was confusing to me at first was where's the API specification? Where is that? I need to have that in order to be able to set this up. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this today. And as always, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again real soon, and bye for now.